Nothing like yesterday's ever happened in this neighborhood.
A North Seattle community in mourning
It was pretty shocking.
after a student was shot and killed at Ingram High School. What we know about the suspects being held in jail tonight.
They called me multiple times and asked me, would I be willing to allow my name to stand as the Republican write-in candidate for Secretary of State?
That candidate is now making a difference in the battle for the next Secretary of State in Washington.
What is, again, really surprising to see is how many write-in votes there are for this race. It's kind of off the charts.
How Brad Clippard could help decide who holds the seat.
Plus, several other races that will decide the balance of power in Congress are too close to call. We have up-to-the-minute results.
Our salmon and shellfish industries may need some extra line with a new aggressive species in our waters.
It's a trend we don't want to see.
The economic impact of the European green crab.
Starting now at 4 o'clock with some breaking news. A woman has admitted to Sumner police that she set a fire that damaged several businesses back on homecoming weekend. Sumner police say she was booked into the Pierce County Jail the day after the fire on unrelated charges. She eventually told police last week she started that fire on purpose to have first responders, quote, do their jobs. She is still in custody right now.
And get ready for another drop. Any moment now, we're expecting a drop of election numbers in Washington as we look live here at King County Election Headquarters in Renton. We'll have the latest numbers coming in for you in just 5 minutes. But first, brand new details in a shooting that left a high school student dead and a community shocked. Welcome to King 5 News at 4. I'm Jessica Janner Castro.
I'm Steve Solis. Today, a judge ordered 2 teenagers be held in custody for their roles in that shooting at Ingram High School. We have team coverage in both the Howler Lake neighborhood and outside the courtroom. I'm speaking with Natalie Swaby, who was in the courtroom as we learned about those suspects. Natalie.
That's right. The 2 suspects, one is 14 years old, the other is 15 years old. When it comes to the 15-year-old, the prosecutor argued that there is probable cause for unlawful possession of a firearm and rendering criminal assistance. But first, the judge heard the allegations against the 14-year-old. In court,
one count of murder in the first degree.
A judge agreed to find probable cause in the case of a 14-year-old arrested. He's accused of shooting and killing an Ingram High School student. These proceedings are happening a day after this.
It's horrifying when you're here and you can't do anything.
A chaotic scene outside of this campus. The timeline is still terrifying for the students and parents who lived it. Just before 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Seattle police say they received reports of a shooting in North Seattle. The gunfire happening inside Ingram High School. Officers arrived, entered the school, and found one student with a gunshot wound. As medics moved in to help, the campus went into lockdown with police searching for the shooter. Shortly after 11 a.m., police provided the update. A person in custody. Sky King was overhead as officers made the arrest on a Metro bus. Now, at this time, both teens are still in custody. One waived his first court appearance, but the second suspect was in court. Hear what his parents had to say. That's ahead in our next hour. You'll also hear from the prosecuting attorney's office. That's at 5. But for now, live in Seattle, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
Natalie, thank you. Now we want to go over to the Howler Lake neighborhood where we find Ingram High School. It's also where Brady Wakayama is. He spent the day there. Neighbors, you spoke with Brady, say that they are still in shock.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. It's quiet here at Ingram High School with a small growing memorial of flowers behind me. And despite the calmness now, that wasn't the case yesterday when parents were trying to reunite with their children. Flowers located just outside the main entrance of Ingram High School, seen as another reminder of the tragic day this community endured Tuesday. Streets are empty now, but parked cars and parents filled the streets on Tuesday after hearing news about the shooting, rushing to find their children.
It's a very nice, quiet neighborhood.
Cynthia Barton has lived near the school for more than 35 years and says she's never seen anything like Tuesday's scene in her neighborhood. Barton says she and many other neighbors, including her sister-in-law down the street, tried to help the hundreds of concerned parents that arrived just outside their doors.
And I was telling people they could pull in and park, So we were just trying to accommodate whatever we could do. I know my sister-in-law even got somebody some tea or something in their car. We just did what we could as a neighborhood with a situation that was presented to us.
And school was canceled today and will also be canceled for tomorrow. For now, live in Seattle, Brady Wakayama, King 5 News.
We have complete coverage of the Ingram High School shooting right now at king5.com, as well as our streaming devices and the King 5 app. Just text the word app to 206-448-4545. We'll send a link right to your phone.
2 men charged in the robbery and a rape of a woman in Kirkland appeared in court this morning.
King 5's Connor Board explains what happened and how the victim's neighbors are coming together to support her.
A survivor, not a victim. That is how a Kirkland woman wants to be referred as. Court documents show she was robbed and raped in her home, and today the men suspected of the crimes appeared in court. Friends attended, supporting the victim today.
All of her people in the area that know her and love her are also grateful that we were able to apprehend these people so quickly to prevent this from happening again in one night or 2 nights later.
Today, Muhammad Essay, who is charged with first-degree robbery, pleaded not guilty. Babakar Toure, who is charged with the rape, had his arraignment delayed because he said he needed a translator. Court records show the survivor was sleeping on the couch in her home when the 2 men broke in armed with guns.
Her family was home sleeping, so she did her best to survive, to stay alive, and to keep her family alive by not screaming so that no one was shot.
Due to private surveillance cameras, police were able to arrest the 2 men the day of the crime.
Due to the need for an interpreter in court today, Babakar Toure will now be arraigned on Monday. Reporting in Seattle, Connor Board, King 5 News.
Turning now to midterms 2022. Election workers in Washington are hard at work counting ballots, and we have brand new numbers at this hour showing new results in some of our top races.
In the Secretary of State's race, things are getting tight. Write-in candidates could help decide the race for Democrat Steve Hobbs and nonpartisan candidate Julie Anderson. Right now, Hobbs with 50% of the vote, Anderson with 47%, but again, counting continues. King 5's Drew Mickelson has been looking into those numbers and spoke with the candidates believed to have received most of those write-in votes. Drew.
Yeah, Jessica and Steve, I want to make it clear, a write-in candidate is not expected to win this race, but they could end up helping decide who wins. The race has been getting a lot of attention because for the first time in decades, more than 50 years, there's no Republican on the ballot. But the Republican Party last month endorsed a write-in candidate, longtime state representative Republican Brad Clippard. He is a Republican who works as a sheriff's deputy out in central Washington. He still challenges the results of the 2020 presidential election and thinks the state system should have a full overhaul. Now, looking at the initial results, Clippard and other write-in candidates got more than 50,000 votes. That's more than 10 times as many write-ins came in for this year's U.S. Senate race. It's only about 3% of the vote, so a write-in candidate will not win, but those votes could end up deciding the race.
I don't know if my running will have the total effect of changing the winner of this race. That is not why I ran. I ran to win. I ran because I think we need to have a more secure election process in Washington State with a whole lot more transparency.
We did reach out to both of the named candidates on the ballot, Julie Anderson and Steve Hobbs. Neither has made any public comments yet. We're hoping to hear from them as we get some more updated numbers throughout the afternoon and evening. Live in Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Drew, thank you. The balance of power in Congress is shifting in this election. As of right now, Republicans are projected to get control of the U.S. House, but there is still a number of races across the country that are too close to call.
That's why a couple congressional races right here in Washington State are being closely watched. King 5's Greg Copeland joins us now to take a look at where those races stand, Greg.
District 8, District 3, those are the big ones that we've been talking a lot about. We're going to begin with District 8, and bear in mind we still have last night's numbers. We're still waiting for the new numbers to drop any minute now, and when they do, we will let you know. But this district in particular, District 8, is a fascinating one because it spans both sides of the Cascades. You've got parts of Pierce, King, Snohomish, Kittitas, and Chelan counties. This has skewed Republican since its inception back in 1982, only going Democrat for incumbent Kim Schreier 4 years ago. Now, obviously, Republicans would like to flip that back. You see Larkin here has got 47% of the vote. The difference is just about 14,000 votes. Those numbers could change quite a bit. But again, we won't have much information until we see that next batch of numbers. So hopefully it will drop here shortly. The other big one we're watching is District 3. This is Southwest Washington. This is the one that was held by, or is held by, Jamie Herrera Butler, who was voted for President Trump to be impeached. She didn't make it through the primary. Instead, Joe Kent beat her out. Now, this one is fascinating because we've got a lot of numbers to go here. You see the difference here, 11,000 votes. Right now, this could be made up of quite a bit. There are about 70,000 more votes to be dropped from just Clark County, which is the Vancouver area right here. Once those come out, we'll have a much better idea of how this district is shaping out, and it could affect the balance of power. We'll keep you posted.
Great, thank you. Moving now to the U.S. Senate race, Democratic incumbent Patty Murray has won a 6th term in a closely watched race, but Republicans tried to pull off an upset. You can see that Murray won with 57% of that vote. And at a watch party in Bellevue last night, Senator Murray thanked her supporters.
You showed up to make sure we would protect this democracy for future generations and fight so that every American's voice would be heard in the elections. You showed up to do that.
Even with Murray holding a double-digit lead, Tiffany Smiley has not conceded. She took the stage at her campaign event last night, saying there's still many ballots left to be counted.
And I always stand close to my convictions, and I stand close to the fact that Washington State does not need seniority. We need motivation and principle, and our family will never stop fighting for that.
Again, NBC News and King 5 are just two of the organizations calling this race for Senator Murray. We have results for all the races here in Washington on our website, king5.com. You can text the word election to the number right there on your screen, 206-448-4545, and we will send you a link. Now we'll look at some of the races across the country that are still too close to call that may impact the balance of power in Congress.
Yet President Joe Biden says he's optimistic for Democratic candidates across the U.S.
And let me say this. Regardless of what the final tally in these elections show, and there's still some counting going on, I'm prepared to work with my Republican colleagues. The American people have made clear, I think, that they expect Republicans to be prepared to work with me as well.
And here's a look at a few of the races that we are watching closely tonight. In Georgia, voters will have to go to a runoff vote. The race between Democratic candidate Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker is less than a point apart. Voters will take to the polls December 6th for that runoff race. Meanwhile, in Arizona, a bit of a bigger gap. Democratic candidate Mark Kelly is leading right now with 51% of the vote. Republican Blake Masters is behind at 47%.
Another tight win in Nevada, just over 2 points apart. Republican Adam Laxalt leads Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto by about 22,000 votes. The search is on for a suspect who robbed a bank in Redmond. An update just 2 minutes away.
Also, the urgent effort to get rid of these invasive creatures, the danger that they pose to local salmon and shellfish.